Now in 1940, they created the Gardner Denver 83, but we call this a jack leg drill because this leg will do most of the work for us. Weighs 85 pounds, takes 1 minute to operate. We're only using one size drill still, just like you see next to me. The problem with these giant drill stills, though, is they do tend to get stuck in the walls pretty easily. When this happens, it's called a hung steel. Now, 4 years ago, we got one stuck ourselves. I've been pulling on it ever since. It hasn't budged. The reason why that's so dangerous is once that steel gets stuck in the wall like that, this leg right here can start spinning and seriously injure the miner that way. Now, unfortunately, this drill is out of commission right now, so I'm not able to operate it for you. I can't hear you. But, as I said before, this leg just does most of the work for the miner. And then over here, we've got two different throttles for the drill. This will be the little one that controls your leg, and this will be the throttle that controls your drill still. But when the 50s rolled around, they changed the form of dynamite to wet gel dynamite. So they're going to take this bigger primer stick, cut it into thirds, just like you see below it, and they'll put that smaller primer stick into each one of these holes and seal the rest of that hole up with probeads or ammonium nitrate, just like you'll see in this jar down here. Unfortunately, I do not have any explosives to demonstrate for you down here. But I have a recording for you to listen to. It won't be very loud, but it gives you an idea as to what this blasting pattern will sound like to the miners when they're down here. We're going to listen to this as we walk down the next part of this drift as well.
So the subwoofer.
Yeah.
Probably there, but it kind of can't for you when I'm salt.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's Epsom salt. Huh?
Don't ingest that.
What they make Epsom salt.
I don't want you to have stomach problems.
Yeah, right. Don't eat any.
Now, sticking out of the ground to your left is the air compression line. And using this line, we can pump that air from the surface down here to power up all the equipment around us. Down the surface behind the building where you guys get your hard hats are 3 air compression tanks that we use to pump the air down. We turn them on about once an hour. That covers all of our requirements. But back then, the mining company had to constantly run the compressor to the surface to keep all 5 levels down here powered up and running at the same time.
I love the electrical.
Yeah.
Electric tape.
Oh, wait 1 sec.
What do you see, deer?
Epsom salt.
Tugger.
Now, if you guys have seen the gold mining shows where they're looking for nuggets of gold, we don't have that up here in Cripple Creek and Victor. Most of the gold we find in this 24 square mile radius around us are nothing more than microscopic flecks of gold. So I'll come over to each one of you guys, I'll show you this rock that I have in my hands, and you'll see the gold just coursing right through the tops of it. And this is what we're looking for up here in Cripple Creek and Victor. It's very, very small things. Very, very small.
So small, I can't even see them.
You sure about that? It looks like glitter in the rock.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
No, very, very small. But there is some that's microscopic, which is actually over there on that rock. I just had to hand pick another one to show people because this is a better example.
What is that sound?
I've never heard that sound down here in my entire life, so that's coming from one of you guys.
It sounds like crickets.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, it's just scaring me.
Now, since we're not down here looking for nuggets of gold, what we are down here looking for are purple veins that we call fluorite, just like you see in front of us. And these fluorite veins will vary from several inches wide to several feet wide. They run horizontally and vertically. But just because we're looking for these veins, it's not a guarantee that gold is nearby. It's a good indication. So to find out if this area was worth mining, they'll break off a chunk of that rock and put it into a canvas bag. It gets sent to an assayer who starts off by using a cyanide treatment that eats away a portion of that host rock. Whatever's left gets heated up to 1400 degrees, and that causes the gold I showed you in this rock to come bubbling up out of those samples. So if you had big bubbles or a lot of bubbles, this is an area that you want to mine out. Very little bubbles or no bubbles at all means you could follow this vein, but you might want to try and find a whole new vein in hopes of finding a bigger, better patch of concentrated ore. You can all squeeze in here because we'll take a look up for just a minute as well. But this rock was pulled from this area, and this area is assayed at no more than half an ounce of gold per ton. Even in today's gold prices, that's not worth mining. But right here where my light's at now is another one of these fluorite veins running up and down. When the mining companies kept seeing the veins running like this, they realized if you're not already below it, it'll be a lot easier to drill down next to that vein, come up below it, let gravity do most of the work for you. This is a method that was called Stoke Drilling, which is spelled S-T-O-P-E. What we're standing in is just the very beginning of a stope. But if you see that flat board up there, that's a drilling platform. Oh my gosh. We'll stand up there with a stope drill and hammer into the rock directly above us, just like you see in this picture over here. Now we are going to see this drill in person in just a few minutes, but as we hammer into the rock directly above us, that's going to first knock the rocks around us loose. They'll come down around those platforms and land on the level below where we have a slusher bucket waiting for us. And using these slusher buckets, you can push that fallen rock down to this ore chute where it's going to automatically load up in an ore cart. So when we have a fully formed stope drilling operation, just like you see here, we're not using explosives. And no miner would have to touch that rock with their hands until it makes it above ground to the surface. Down here at the bottom is an air locomotive, and they're using ore carts to and from the mine shaft. We're going to take a look at those machines next. Before I go into details, I did want to let you know, before those machines were used down here, they had donkeys down here to move ore carts to and from the mine shaft. I'm going to squeeze around real quick.
Have you done actual mining?
Yes. So every one of us tour guides has some form of experience in mining. And I've been mining up here in this district for 10 years and giving tours for the last 6. Now, as we walk down the next part of this trip, we're walking past a display. And there's just not a lot of room to talk about it while we're there. And they didn't use it for very long. It is called the Air Donkey, or the Perry Gortner Tram. And it was created by Mollie Kathleen's son, Perry Gortner, after he read an article about the old Homestead mine in South Dakota and about the equipment that they were using. He thought, how hard could it be? And tried to create his own version of this equipment. By June of 1920, he succeeded in creating his version of the Air Donkey. Now, it is very small, it's not very effective. But I want to let you know what you're about to see. So as we walk by, if you want to take a picture, you're more than welcome to do so. But coming up to your right is that Air Donkey, or the Perry Gortner Tram that I was just talking about.
That's what you thought was your barbecue spot?
Yeah. Basically an air locomotive instead of using donkeys.
I have like 10,000 pictures on my phone.
Yes, you are.
Turn the phone off.
I did mostly video down here. I figured you're taking lots of snaps. Oh, we didn't bring the other battery or the other memory card, so when we're done, we're done. Move forward, please. Back up. Let's get on.
All right. Now, I will be getting out of your way in just a few minutes, so you can all have a chance to take a look back here. But a few years after they created that Air Donkey, they hired a mine supervisor by the name of Shirley Johnson who saw that machine and wanted to improve upon it. About a year after Shirley Johnson was hired, he rolled out with his version of the air locomotive. And the only differences between these machines are the size of the tanks attached to them. That one was steam powered. This one started using compressed air. Below these tanks is a Baker steamer, and that's going to move your wheels. Behind these tanks are supposed to be seats, levers, and nozzles, so you can sit down and control the speed and direction in which you're going. Now, we will see a working model of one of these air locomotives in just a few minutes when we go for a ride as well. But just like the Epsom salt, there are other minerals down here not worth mining. This green you're starting to see around us now is oxidized copper. The yellow is sulfur, and right in between you two, those dark patches halfway down the wall are oxidized iron. And there's just not enough of these minerals down here with mining, so the miners have to sit down here. But if you were to go to places like Cave of the Winds or anything like that, where they'll talk to you about stalactites, And stalagmites, they'll tell you that those can take thousands of years to form. Because of all the excess minerals and moisture that we have sitting above us, some of these can grow to this length in as little as 7 months. They just get broken off for various reasons all the time. But once a stalactite and a stalagmite come together and connect, they create a column. And as I said, this can take thousands of years to form. So I'll get out of your way. You can all get as close to that chain as you want. Behind that ore chute, in the middle of that tunnel, is a fully formed column, if you want to take a closer look.
Jeez,
No, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I thought you were taking photos.
All right. I'm going to squeeze it over real quick. Now, as you take a look back there, I will tell you why we closed down. In 1961, when the mine shut down, it was not because we thought we grabbed all the gold out of the area. It's because the price of gold sank so low. The smelting mill in the district could no longer turn a profit. When they shut down, that forced most of the mines in the area to shut down along with it. However, this mine and the Ajax Mine, once our smelting mill closed down, we tried to remain in operation by sending our gold to Leadville, Colorado. After a couple months, it was too costly. We had to shut down, in the long run as well. The deepest parts of this mine is another 50 feet below us, and you will have a chance to take a look down that mine shaft here in a few minutes. The Ajax Mine was the deepest mine that we had in the district, and they went down 3,350 feet. This is the warmest level, the Mollie Kathleen, and that's because as you get closer to the Earth's core, it gets even warmer. The bottom level, to the Ajax Mine, set at over 120 degrees year-round. Now they estimate anywhere up to 60% of the gold can still be found in this 24 square mile radius around us. There is one major mining operation still going on in the district, and that's a strip mine behind us, known as Newmont Mine, or CC&V. On a slow day, they still pull up more than $1 million worth of gold. So they're doing very well for themselves. Now when we get back up to the surface, and you guys get off those cages, if you hang around for just a second, I'll point you to an overlook about 1.5 miles from here, where you can stand in the bed of a dump truck and take a look inside that strip mine, if that's something that you want to do.
Yes.
Sure.
But once you've all had a chance to take a look back there, we'll move on to the next set of drills.
So strictly financials wise, this became inactive then, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, now what I have in my hands is one of the very first models of the Stoke drill that the miners called the Wiggletail Stoke drill. And they're going to spend their entire shift on a drilling platform, just like you see below me, and wiggle this drill back and forth so that this piece of steel would not get stuck in the rocks above. But when we're down here working in a hard rock mining operation, we're creating fine rock particles and dust all around us. Using this drill, that dust is coming down directly on top of that miner. No matter where you're at in the mine or what you're doing, once you breathe in enough of that dust, you've contracted silicosis in the lungs. Back then, any miner to be diagnosed with silicosis was considered lucky to even survive past the age of 50. So they created jack tanks. They filled them full of water. Then they took drill stills and they drilled holes right through the middle of them. So as you're working, you can shoot water through the steel and turn a lot of that dust into mud. It lowers your chances of contracting that silicosis. You gotta have a trade-off. But as an added bonus, it also kept us a tad bit cooler, so it didn't have to be repaired and replaced as often. But over there to my right is a working model of the Stoke drill, just like you saw in that picture. It is hooked up to a jack tank, even though there's no water in it, and it rotates for us as well. The drills that they operate through down here never actually make contact with the rock around us, so you don't have to worry about that silicosis. However, this can be the loudest display that we have down here. So I strongly encourage you to cover your ears. Now the next display that I'll show you is a fully formed stope. And before I talk more about the stope, on the left side of that wall is a photo of it as it was being formed in the early 1900s, using hand tools and candles. Once you've had a chance to take a look at this photo, line up on the right side of the wall as close to the shred machine as you can get, and we'll take a look directly above us. You guys go ahead, keep squeezing in here. We're going to take a look right above us. All right, now this is a Queen Bess stope, and it is the largest on display in North America. This stope goes up 740 feet.
Wow.
Hey, there's somebody up there.
On the left side of that stope, you can see a miner sitting up there. He was the highest paid miner back then. He got paid $4 a day to be up there.
Wow.
At the beginning of his shift, he would climb a ladder, which would start right here. He'll take his tools, a lunch pail, and a bucket. He's not allowed to come down until the end of his shift. So chances are he had a relative who worked down here, anywhere between the ages of 8 and 13 years old. Those children were paid 50 cents a day to be down here. So if he needs a piece of equipment, he's going to haul down to one of those children who would attach it to this tugger. And using this tugger, you can take that equipment up to the miner and bring anything that's broken or damaged right back down as well.
What if you have to pee?
That's what the extra bucket's for. Now, I will operate this for you guys. It's not going to be very loud. But if you still want to cover your ears, you're more than welcome to. All right, now I do think this is pretty cool, so I like to point this out just in case you haven't seen it yet.
Wow.
But over here to my right is an oxidized copper stalactite. Once you've had a chance to take a look at everything that you want to see, go ahead and take a seat, because we're going for a ride next.
Is it stalactite?
Stalactite, yeah.
So it sounded like it was air controlled? Just now?
It was pneumatic.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I saw a power cord, that's why I was inquiring.
yeah, that's for
Oh,
like.
got it.
Were they just chasing a vein up there?
Yeah, you can actually, so, you can see, this is the main vein that they found, but it had in Arizona Institute.
Oh, he wasn't kidding.
Oh, because he's
You sit up there with me?
Yeah.
Higher seat, and I'll sit down low.
freezing out. Whoa.
I didn't know there was a Disney ride involved here.
Yeah, I know.
Better not be a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, I don't like roller coasters. You might get thrown
Last
up
roller
on.
coaster ride I went on, it broke.
Oh,
And I was upside down, so I don't want that ever. Space Mountain, never again.
yeah, Space Mountain's pretty scary.
Upside down, especially.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
How long were you stuck that for?
About 45 minutes.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Now, what we're about to take a ride
Grad
on
night.
is called a man trip.
was the
Shirley
last.
Johnson made the first couple of these as well, but as he was creating them, he forgot to patent his idea. A mining company down there in Denver known as Tram and Fry, one day they came up here and they saw Shirley Johnson. They saw Shirley Johnson making these man trips. And when they realized that the idea was not protected, they stole that idea and they patented it for themselves. Shirley Johnson realized what was going on. So this is the last man trip that Shirley Johnson was allowed to make, and it spent many years in the surface collecting dust. When we finally brought it down here and added it to the tour, we took off the
Ajax
original
Mine
seats,
up
and those
there.
were flat wooden boards.
Yes, you
So
are.
back then, miners didn't even have backs for like you guys have
I
right.
think at the first one.
When miners were using those candles and lamps that I showed you at the beginning of the tour, they did not like them until they got to where they're working. Most of this ride has been left dark on purpose to give you an idea as to what that'll feel like to the miner as well. It won't be very fast, but I must remind you to please remain seated. Keep your hands and feet inside the car at all times.
Going uphill now, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's the fun part.
Going uphill now. Uh-oh, we're out of here. Air refill station?
I didn't, what?
Air refill station.
Oh, no, no.
All right, now what we've just entered is a junction. And a junction is where a series of your crosscuts and drifts would meet, with given an ideal location. Split tool benches for a so anytime that there's a broken or damaged piece of equipment, it's not going to leave the mine. It comes to one of these junctions and it gets repaired on site before another miner needs it. That's great. But this is our stop. So once you guys are safely off the man trip, if I can have you take a couple steps away from it, I have to send it on its way as well.
Take your picture right here.
Oh, there's the air tank, okay.
If I can get it.
Wow. How many pounds of pressure in the tank?
Right now, there's 90 pounds. That'll be enough to take it back, but if it's at 100 pounds, we can send it here and back without.
And you refill here, or you can refill here too, right?
Yep.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
All right, now that's not something that the old-time miners did, but all we've done is bolt steel down to the ground and put a tire right in front of it. So when that man trip gets back there, it's just going to push that tire against the steel until it runs out of air, until another group comes along to fill back up.
Nice.
As far as an active mining operation went, we closed down in 1961. In 1963, a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Cox bought this establishment, and he decided that he was going to give tours through it. The original tour route started on the level above us at 700 feet. You'd walk around in a circle up there, get back in those cages, and then they brought you down into the 1,000-foot level to start the tour just like we did. But if you remember that side tunnel that I pointed out at the beginning, the Julian Davis Drift, we took a right. We saw those drills, but there was another part of that drift blocked off by an ore cart. The original tour route would go around that ore cart. They're going to come out this part of the Julian Davis Drift. Take a left at this junction, and then at the next set of lights down there, they would take another left. It's just a much smaller circle than what we're walking right now. After a couple years, he thought, let's bring everything down to one level and make it one giant circle. So he started to drill and blast down this drift over here. When this was an active mining operation, miners were walking down that crosscut. Past wall that sat right there for many years, and not one miner thought to check 10 feet behind that wall. So imagine the look on Nick's face when in that first blast, he found a gold vein hiding right above his head. Now, even though he pulled most of the gold out of this vein, he could not turn this into money because he was not a legal mining operation. He did manage to smelt some of this gold down into bars and coins, and he put that on display on the other side of that ore cart, where that sat until 2009, when the price of gold reached its previous all-time high. At that point, our owners were curious. They wanted to know how much gold was really sitting in that case. Well, it turns out they were sitting on a little bit more than $1.2 million of gold. So for safekeeping, it was quickly moved to storage. No one's going to buy this since. Now, we are going to finish out the rest of the tour by walking this way, but as we finish the tour, please watch your step. There is a lot more water coming down to this part of the mine. The next area that you guys will see is going to have a ton of displays for you to take a look at. I'll talk about a few of them, but as I talk about these displays, take a look at them all.
Any emeralds around here?
No, but it, we have turquoise. All right, now the first display that I'll be talking about is this blue one to my right, labeled the Gold King Mine. If you guys remember that crosscut that I pointed out at the very beginning, the Gold King crosscut leads into that mine. And that's the very first mine that was founded up here. It was founded by a rancher whose name was Robert Womack, who liked to prospect in his free time. But the problem with Robert Womack was he's an alcoholic. So as he was prospecting, he was always too inebriated to tell the difference between fool's gold and real gold. So for 12 years, Robert Womack sent mostly fool's gold to the assayer's office. He eventually earned the nickname Crazy Bob Womack. Now, no one knows exactly what happened, but one day he sent in enough real gold for them to finally say, yes, this area is worth mining. Robert Womack established a Gold King mine and became famous for the gold rush of Cripple Creek. Not long after that, Robert Womack wanted to celebrate his newfound fame with a drinking spree. So he went down to what's now known as Old Colorado City, where he sold his claim for $500 in a bottle of whiskey. Right next to that display is the Mollie Kathleen gold mine. And if you take a look at the picture above it, you can see us in the middle. And down the hill to the left was a Gold King mine, so we were very close together. But Mollie Kathleen and her family moved here from Atomo, Iowa, when the gold rush of Cripple Creek started. Her son and her husband quickly got a job working for the mining industry. Her son became a surveyor. Her husband became a mine claim lawyer. Now, one day, Mollie Kathleen was walking around the town of Cripple Creek and noticed a herd of elk announced to town. She had never seen these animals before, so she wanted to take a close look at them and started hiking up after those elk. But they saw her, and they took off pretty quickly, so she spent some time trying to track these animals down, but eventually got tired, sat down to catch her breath. When she sat down, she saw a big rock that looked just like Exhibit A, and there's a small chunk over here underneath the display case. If you guys want to get a closer look at that as well. Not down here. Anyway, so Mollie Kathleen broke off a couple pieces of those rocks. Absolutely. Took them home to her husband. Her husband took them to an assayer, and it turns out she had found high-grade ore, or a lot of gold bubbles in her samples. If you want to see what that gold looks like after it's been heated up to just 1,400 degrees, comes bubbling up out of those rocks right behind you. Exhibit G is a piece of roasted gold ore. See the bubbles popping right out of that rock. When Mollie Kathleen found out that she had found high-grade ore, she went down to the mine claim office and began filling out paperwork to open up her very own mine. However, miners are very superstitious, even in today's world. Back then, it was considered bad luck to even have a woman try and step foot in a mine claim operation. They took this superstition so seriously, that's the main reason they gave for refusing her the rights to this mine. She took it up with her husband, who fought for her right to mine, and when they won, made her one of the very first women in history to own her own mine claim. But even though she had won that right to mine, nobody wanted to work for her because it's supposed to be bad luck. Well, the miners, they could not meet their quotas with the rest of the mines around us. They're running out of options. So they finally gave Mollie Kathleen's mine a try. Out of nearly 500 mining companies in this 24 square mile radius around us, not only was she one of the most profitable, she's one of the very few mines that continually produced gold from the time that she opened to the time that she closed. So for 70 years, hardly a day went by, they did not pull gold from this mine. I gave each one of you guys a rock that does contain a little bit of gold in it. However, there is not enough gold for you to retire on hidden in those rocks. If you were able to safely and successfully extract the gold from those rocks, it's going to be the hardest you have ever worked for a can of soda, I promise you. Now, as we walk into this next area, some of you taller people, watch your head. There's a little bit of a low clearance for you down here. But what you're about to see next is the mine shaft called the Winze, spelled W-I-N-Z-E. It's a smaller mine shaft, the one we came down. When you take a look down this Winze, please hold on to your hard hats, glasses, cameras, phones, anything you do not want to lose to the mine itself. But if you want to take a look down it, it's right in front of you. And if you're feeling adventurous, that grate is stable enough to walk across.
Wow, look at that.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah, it flexes a little bit.
You put some pictures somewhere?
Damn.
You try it. You want a rock for me?
It's mine
Too
now.
many things in my
You have two cups of soda. Yeah, right. I want to really thirsty.
To the side of it. There you go.
All right, now I'm willing to bet at least
Shutdown
one of you
circuit.
guys was not a fan of the 9-man miner's cage and the mine shaft that we used to get down here. Before we had these cages, when miners came down here to work, they put all their supplies in that sinking bucket. Then the miners would stand on the lip of that bucket, hold onto that cable, and they have to balance themselves out as they get down into the mine. This is, of course, before we had any form of MSHA, the Miners Safety Health Association, so we're not allowed to do this anymore. But they'd also fill those buckets full of rocks, bring them back up to the surface, and using that plate right there called an apron, you can dump that bucket in the ore cart on the other side, send it right back down the mine shaft. Once you've had a chance to take a look down that Winze, if I can have you stand on that side of the grate, I would really appreciate it. Now what I'm about to be operating is an antique steam hoist that has been converted to compressed air, if you guys want to take a picture of this. Most of the noise will be over here, but if you guys want to cover your ears, you're more than welcome to do so. And yeah, you guys want to take a step away from the ore car just in case something bad happens.
That's impressive.
Now, if you are planning on going into the town of Cripple Creek today, be on the lookout for donkeys that have free roam across the town. They are protected by the National Historic Society. They're one of America's only mobile landmarks. They have more rights than the citizens of Cripple Creek themselves. Every year in the summer, they celebrate a holiday up here called Donkey Derby Days, where they spend an entire weekend racing random donkeys around town. I'm from Iowa. I don't understand what's going on, so I just avoid that holiday altogether. But the reason why they protect those donkeys so well nowadays is because the ones that are allowed free roam across the town are the last remaining descendants of the donkeys that we used in the mines beforehand. We're going to go ahead and walk back into the station now, but there's about 14 of these donkeys left. And if you do want to try and find them, my best recommendation for you is to go across the street from us to the Heritage Center and talk to those people. They keep pretty good tabs on the donkeys, and they can point you in the right direction. But if you don't want to do that, they do like to hang around the post office, Family Dollar area, and the high school football field. So those are good places to start looking too.
Heritage Center in Cripple Creek? Or in Victor?
The Heritage Center here in Cripple.
Oh, Cripple, okay.
That's just right across the street.
Right. Oh, that place, okay.
Now when we get into the station, we're going to take a look to our right first.
Oh, okay, there's your code.
All right, now, back in the old days, each mine had their own bell code system. So if you're a miner who could not meet your quota, next mine you go to could have a completely different set of bells. When they were using that sinking bucket back there, a group of miners cut a ride back up to the surface but gave the wrong bell code, the all clear. That hoist operator took that bucket up to the surface, threw it into dump position, where the miners were thrown out and a ton of ore came down directly on top of those miners. None of them survived, but one of them had a brother whose name was J.W. Stonehouse, who owned and operated his own sign shop in Denver. When he heard about his brother's death, he created this universal bell code system. It took him a couple months, but he convinced a few of the mines in the area to just give this system a try. When they agreed, it worked so well that it became the federal bell code that we use in all the gold mines around the United States today. If those cages weren't still waiting for us down here, we would have used this call bell to let them know that we're waiting for a pickup at 1,000 feet, using a 2-5 combination. But since they are here, I'm going to pull it at once, and that's just our combination to our hoist operator to let him know that we've arrived in the station. And if he's not ready, here in a few minutes, we would like him to be ready, so we can get a ride back up to the surface. When we came down here, you might have seen me use a bell on the surface, or on the other side of that shaft. When we came down here, I started with 2-5, let them know we're going down 1,000 feet. But then I added 3 for people on when slow and 2 for lower. So to come down here, it's 2-5, 3-2. After those cages are loaded up, to go back up to the surface, we'll ring 3 for people on and 1 for hoist. And because we did not put one of our floor levels in front of it, that tells you, hoist operator, we want to go back up to the surface, not to another part of the mine. But just like the miners in the old days, our hoist operator today has terrible hearing. So if he can't hear that bell, there's lights up there to flash that combination. Real quick, I'll demonstrate the 2-5 for you so you can see and hear what he would have seen and heard, to let him know that we're down here at 1,000 feet waiting for a pickup. It won't be very loud, but it is a bell if you guys want to cover your ears. If he got our signal, he'd pick up a phone on the surface, and using this intercom over here, he could tell us how long that wait's going to be. It all depends on the situation. Behind you guys, underneath that sign is a miner's rescue basket. So if a miner was injured or killed down here, they'll strap you to that basket and then tie you up to that hook right there at the bottom of those cages, and they're going to hoist you up to the surface, just like that basket standing right there, straight up and down in the mine shaft. Before we get back into these cages, if you guys want a picture beneath that sign, you are more than welcome to do so.
Sign.
Yeah. You wanna get in there, Sharon? or-
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
You want us to do you?
Sure. So as you guys finish up those photos, I'll talk about one last thing. If you guys had a chance to take a look through the windows of the Hoist house before you came down here, you would have seen a Chrysler 1953 331 Hemi. That is one of our backup plans. And we'll use that backup plan if we lose power across the city. If we lose power, they'll fire that Hemi up, and we can pull these cages back up to the surface. Instead of 2 minutes, it would take 8 minutes one way. And while that sounds like a long time to be cramped into those cages, it's better than our worst case scenario, which is a series of ladders that starts here and goes up to the surface.
Oh, wow.
It all depends on your pace, but the longest that we've seen anyone take is an hour and a half, and this does not appeal to me. So every year I smuggle down and I had food, drinks, and blankets along the tour. So if these cages were to break down for any reason at all, we would have been prepared for a wait. I have plenty down here. Fortunately, this has never happened to me before. Do you have any questions before we get back into these cages? So, if you did not ride down with me, or if you were loaded up on the cages first, you're going to get it in the same order as well. Tell people watching that.
You're in there.
I know. I'm lost.
Yeah, we were in the second.
Uh-oh.
Nope, nope,
No,
nope,
no, no,
nope,
no.
nope,
No?
nope. We're in the
Did you
second.
ride down
We're in
with
a
me?
second.
Oh, that's
We're below, yeah.
We rode with you.
Unless you wanna squeeze in there.
Alright, guys. So if you have sunglasses, I recommend you put them on before we make it back up to the surface. If you don't have sunglasses, I will remind you when we get close to the surface. But I recommend you shield your eyes for a couple seconds. You readjust
Mine are
the sun's natural.
Sunglasses automatic.
But as they say on the airlines, you're
There you go.
about that
No,
cap.
UV hits it.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and get it in the same order as well.
Okay. You're in front of me. You're
Oh,
next.
that's right, I was in front of you.
Yeah.
Same order.
Yep. Same crushing order.
Run this way. Sharon, are you okay with the camera?
Yeah.
I think I gained weight since we came down.
Sorry.
You're lower altitude.
Yeah.
I have never been in a cage where it's felt the same going back up to the surface. All right, now, if you guys have been to the Royal Gorge, or maybe you're planning on visiting there soon, from the bridge down to the bottom of the gorge is about 1,000 feet to give you an idea as to how far we went down today as well. If you're not doing that, another example I can give you is we can almost fit the entire length of the Empire State Building down this mine shaft.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. But going back up to the surface, you should see the 700-foot level coming up. That splits out both ways. And that's going to be coming up right about here. That's the original tour route. Next level you'll see is in front of the cage door again at 600 feet. That's right here. So the next light bulb you'll see is 500 feet or halfway, and this is where the ride gets bumpy once again. Next up, you'll see is that opposite of the cage door at 400 feet, that red light. Once we're above that red light, we're above the town of Cripple Creek once again.
I don't like these bumps at all.
Come on, you like the motorcycle, right?
So,
Not really.
and so this is actually the hoist operator today. He is the smoothest hoist operator that we have.
That's good to know.
The owner's son is the main supervisor of the operation, and he does the hoist most of the time. And, it's a lot bumpier. It's not bad, but you can tell the difference between the two. Absolutely. Now we are almost up to the surface, guys. So again, just in case it is bright out, I recommend you shield your eyes for a couple seconds and get readjusted to the sun's natural brightness. We've got about 50 feet left to go to the surface.
Close your eyes slowly.
What was your name again?
My name's Kelly.
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 It was so nice, Kelly. Thank you.
And we.
Thank you.
Alright, so we'll lead you out this way. We'll give your ticket back. This is a souvenir for you guys. And that counts for me. Absolutely. So that ticket, no problem.
Have fun.
I appreciate that.
Take care of you.
So any